Hello everyone, and welcome to the Synology product online training. We have a wonderful topic for everyone here today, going over a new enterprise hardware and software suite from Synology for dedicated backups called ActiveProtect Manager. Quick introduction, my name is Cody. I'm a product manager here at Synology, and I'll be your guide for this one this time around. Now, in terms of your Synology SMB, small to medium business disaster recovery, there's essentially three packages you would have used classically with your Synology NAS. Now, ActiveProtect Manager is dedicated hardware and software, so a lot of the different features inside of ActiveProtect Manager will in spirit replace several of these packages you see on screen here. Active Backup for Business was your complete endpoint and SaaS backup. Snapshot replication served as a way to move data off your primary backup NAS to a secondary one, and Hyper Backup allows you to back up data to the cloud. So, ActiveProtect Manager is an evolution of the foundation that these three different packages built. Now, if we zoom out even further and take a look at any and all applications on a Synology NAS that can do backup at all or move data off the NAS at all, you can see that there's several different packages listed here. You have Cloud Sync Active Backup for Microsoft 365, Synology Drive Sync tasks and backup tasks, Active Backup for Business, Snapshot Replication, and Hyper Backup. So to be able to configure immutable encrypted at rest backups, you had to be proficient in several different software packages, that being Active Backup for Business, Snapshot Replication, Immutable Snapshots, as well as Hyper Backup if you did want to send that off to the cloud. So recognizing this and recognizing the need for more simple enterprise backups so that your stressed enterprise resources can be used more effectively, Synology developed the ActiveProtect Manager suite, a dedicated all-in-one enterprise backup solution with dedicated hardware and software specifically to serve this purpose. Now, allow me to formally introduce the dedicated all-in-one enterprise backup solution from Synology to the Synology product online training community, that is ActiveProtect Manager. And that is going to be the topic of today's entire session. Now, on the agenda today, in exploring ActiveProtect Manager, we're going to first take a look at the enterprise backup software, the structure, and some different features that you can take advantage in this new enterprise software suite for dedicated backups. We're then going to take a look at the dedicated Synology hardware that you'll use to actually catch the backups for your ActiveProtect Manager environment in certain scenarios. Then we're going to take a look at some different integration scenarios and some options for integrating with existing Synology hardware depending on the model, or for setting certain security settings inside of ActiveProtect Manager to meet specific compliance requirements. Moving on into section 1 on ActiveProtect Manager, the software component of the enterprise all-in-one backup solution from Synology. Now, in this section, we're going to start off by taking a look at the structure of ActiveProtect Manager. We're going to see what all the different hardware components do and what kind of categorization they'll have inside of the ActiveProtect Manager system. We'll then move into backup plans, which are sort of umbrella policies for your backup solution for your entire organization. If you edit your plan, your policy for your entire organization, all the workloads it protects will also be edited as well. So we're going to move into plans after structure because the plan settings are heavily influenced by what you've set up on the infrastructure side of things for ActiveProtect Manager. We're finally going to round things out with some restore capabilities and self-service recovery options for your users inside of this enterprise ActiveProtect Manager environment. First, on our discussion on the overall construction and structure of ActiveProtect Manager, we're going to first take a look at what it can protect and its overall backup strategy. In terms of ActiveProtect Manager, it's a system designed to scalably protect everything in a single platform, or cluster in this case. With ActiveProtect Manager, you're able to back up SaaS, virtual machine, physical server, PC and Mac, file server and NAS data, as well as databases like Oracle and SQL databases, all in a singular platform. Now, to accomplish protection for these different backup objects, ActiveProtect Manager deploys a 32110 backup strategy. Now, 32110 is a little bit of an evolution of the 321 backup strategy. 321 being 3 different copies, at least 2 different mediums, at least 1 copy off-site. The 1 and the 0 in this different backup strategy, the 32110 strategy, includes at least 1 copy immutable requirement and 0 errors across your entire backup system. So this 32110 strategy is the strategy that ActiveProtect Manager deploys in the environment. Keep in mind that as we're working through this, the source of your backups, the actual data residing on your endpoint, for example, that is your original copy of your data. And the ActiveProtect Manager and the backup copy destination will serve as the second and third immutable copies in this case. And we'll explore that a bit further in just a moment. Now that we know what the system can back up and protect, and we know the overall backup strategy, let's discuss some diagrams for some potential deployments. Now, ActiveProtect Manager is a highly scalable system. The hardware that we're going to discuss a little bit later, you'll come to find, is able to scale to thousands of management servers protected and controlled from a single hub. However, we're going to go through several different usage scenarios, including single site or smaller multi-site deployments. But as we work through this, just know that ActiveProtect Manager scales big time. We're talking up to 2,500 managed servers and up to 150,000 protected workloads. Work with us if you have any workloads past that, and we can spec the system to meet your needs. Now, on the topic of a single site deployment, your backup server would be your management console in this case, because it is the only device in the mix in this situation. Now, whenever we're taking a look at your endpoints, your PCs, your physical servers, your VMs, file servers, or Microsoft 365 data, that can all be backed up to your central backup server in this case. Now, even though you only have one data protect appliance in this whole solution, you can still accomplish 32110 with even just a single site deployment, because this single backup server can still mount remote storage in C2 object storage, AWS S3, or using a remote vault that we'll discuss a little bit later. And you can take that backup that you've taken onto this backup server and copy it over to your remote storage destination. Likewise, in this entire environment, of course, your backup server can do instant restores back into your production environment if you need to. Even a single site deployment is capable of achieving 32110. We have our source data, which is your initial copy. The backup server and management console will retain your second copy in this case, and your third copy would be the backup copy offsite to remote storage, like C2 object in this case. Now, that was a standard single site deployment. Let's talk about if you have more than one data protect appliance in your environment. So in our production site, let's say we have our backup server. And once again, this is going to be our management console that's going to control the entire site, the production site and the remote site as well, from one pane of glass. So once we have that all set up, our production site can send backups over to the data protect appliance, your DP7400, or one of the other models we'll discuss a little bit later. Now, if you have a remote site and a secondary DP series device or ActiveProtect Vault, you can actually have your backup copy sent directly over there. And likewise, on that secondary remote site, you're also able to do instant restores on that secondary site as well in case your main production site ever goes down. So if you have a DR hypervisor at that secondary site, you can leverage that in your restore pathways. So we just took a look at how ActiveProtect Manager can serve you, even if it's a standalone deployment or even if it's a smaller multi-site deployment with a production site and a DR location. But ActiveProtect Manager goes much further than that. You can manage 2,500 other backup servers or 2,500 other sites in certain deployment scenarios. So what we're getting at here is we could have a backup server at HQ, and that could be your management console. And at HQ, you could also have other devices like an HD6500 for deeper retention. These solutions at your HQ location will manage your entire ActiveProtect deployment. Now, just like on the previous diagram, we can actually place an on-site component at each of your branch locations and have that device back up your local components there. So your PCs, servers, Microsoft 365 data, VMs at that local branch office can back up to a local Synology backup server. And once that is accomplished, you can send that backup copy right back to the HQ location that has that other backup server, that management console, or an HD6500. So that's all doable for a single site or a single DR site solution. But once again, ActiveProtect Manager does scale up to 2,500 other servers. So you can essentially add branches as you go with a similar deployment each time. You can have a local backup server at each branch office, giving you the best performance for your backups and restores so long as that backup server is online. And again, if that backup server does go offline at one of those branch offices, you still have your backup copy destination at HQ that you can leverage for your restores. One of the main benefits of using ActiveProtect Manager and the Data Protect appliances at each stage of your 32110 backup strategy is your ability to leverage source-side and cross-site deduplication to give you maximum storage savings with efficient bandwidth usage. Now remember, our goal with source-side cross-site deduplication is to save 99% of duplicate data transmission and reduce transmission bandwidth requirements. So let's take a first initial backup of an endpoint going to your initial backup server as an example. Let's say it has blocks A, B, and C on it. If you're sending your initial backup to your backup server and it's completely blank, it will move all blocks A, B, and C over to your backup server. Pretty much par for the course right there. Now, the source-side global deduplication occurs when you then begin to back up additional endpoints to that same backup server. Let's say this endpoint has blocks B, C, and D on it. Now, in this case, you can see that the backup server already has blocks B and C on it, as well as A from the previous device, but D is missing. So with source-side global deduplication, your block D in this case from this new endpoint would be the only thing transmitted to your backup server, which helps to aid in saving up to 99% of duplicate data transmission and reduce transmission bandwidth requirements overall. Let's zoom out now and take a look at what source-side and cross-site deduplication looks like whenever you have ActiveProtect Manager at each stage of your backup strategy. We've already taken a look at when your data is moving from your source to your primary backup server for that first backup. That's going to give you around 2 times faster backup speeds and 2 times faster restore speeds, while also reducing up to 99% of duplicate data transmission. You also gain cross-site deduplication whenever you're pushing your backup copy to an ActiveProtect appliance or an ActiveProtect vault off-site. On average, we're seeing a 2-to-1 data reduction ratio, and that could vary depending on how much duplicate data you have in your environment. But as you can see, if you have ActiveProtect Manager on the agent, your backup server, and your backup repository, you gain the most benefits from global, source-side, and cross-site deduplication. As you can see, we're now in ActiveProtect Manager, and we're taking a look at the dashboard, which is an overview of your entire backup environment. You can see things like deduplication, usage trends, and backup duration as you scroll down through this menu. As you grow your backup system, this dashboard will become ever more populated with other metrics that you can use to analyze the overall system health and plan expansions accordingly. Now, under Site Management is where you're going to be able to manage the entire site that you see here. This is the device that is actually running the dashboard that we're interacting with. So on this page, we're able to set up a failover management server or things like the management server address and certificates for accessing the recovery portal and things of that nature. Now, if we drill into the ActiveProtect Manager device that is actually running this entire dashboard, we can see the information for this specific hardware component. We can see things like the data transfer size, the connectivity associated with it, its current storage health in terms of how much storage it has available to it, and things like bandwidth control and air gap. We'll be returning to the air gap setting in a later demo. So under backup servers, you can see we have the DP7400 management server, and that's what's, again, controlling everything we see here. So if we want to add additional backup servers in the Data Protection ActiveProtect Manager lineup, we can click the Add button and follow the rules that you see here. We'll need this external address as well as the connect key especially. The connect key is going to allow us to actually join the site on the other system. So on this other system, this is a standalone DP340, and we're going to join this to our main ActiveProtect Manager site. So on this standalone device, you're going to see under Site Management, it's just showing the DP340 instead of the 7400. When we click to join an ActiveProtect site, we're going to follow through this wizard and type in the FQDN or IP address from before and the connect key associated with this specifically. Now, once this connect key is all paired back in, the system will begin joining your ActiveProtect Manager site. And we'll let this run for just a few moments here. Now, back on our main ActiveProtect Manager device, you can see that we now have that DP340 available in our backup service menu, and we can manage it from the single pane of glass. For the time being, it's syncing configurations, but once that syncing is complete, you can now manage this remote DP340 from this single pane of glass. Now that we've taken a look at the overall construction of your ActiveProtect Manager environment and took a look at some advanced features like source-side, cross-site deduplication, let's take a look at the backup methodology and plans and everything else associated with that next. So in terms of your backups with ActiveProtect Manager, as you saw from our previous diagrams, you're able to pretty much back up everything in your environment. That is the goal of the ActiveProtect Manager environment in the first place, to be able to back up your PCs, your servers, your VMs, and software as a service data inside of Microsoft 365. Now, in terms of your ActiveProtect Manager backup strategy, it's entirely managed by your backup plans after you've set up your backup infrastructure. Now, we're going to be focusing on today the 32110 backup strategy, which involves immutable backups. So all of the backup settings we're going to discuss are the immutable backup settings. Just please note that if you don't need immutable backups for whatever reason, there is a not immutable backup option inside of ActiveProtect Manager that allows you to do grandparent, parent, child advanced retention rules if you so need. Now, on the topic of ActiveProtect Manager and immutable backups, there's immutable plans for your physical and virtual machine devices, as well as your software as a service data in Microsoft 365. And once again, these are global policies for backup that allow you to control your backup policy site-wide. Now, each of your immutable plans for physical devices, for example, can be assigned a plan key. And this key is very important for your physical agents. Your physical agents only need the IP address or domain name for your backup server and the plan key tied to the specific plan you created. So whenever that agent does that initial authentication, it's using this key for authentication rather than user credentials. So whenever you're installing the agent first and editing your MSI file and pushing it out via a group policy object, that install pathway is much smoother with the ActiveProtect agent, especially in comparison to Active Backup for Business. Active Backup for Business required you to have your username and your password also passed into the agent on the user side, which increases the burden on your user. So by having plan keys inside of ActiveProtect Manager's backup plans, we're able to reduce that burden on the agent side of your backups when it initially joins. Now, some other backup plan features that are available inside of ActiveProtect Manager, your backup copies off-site to another ActiveProtect device, to an ActiveProtect vault, or to object storage can be immutable as well. And just like with other Synology backup platforms like Active Backup for Business, ActiveProtect Manager is application aware, using industry standards to provide that feature. A new feature inside of backup plans for ActiveProtect Manager is the ability to do full database backups for Microsoft SQL and Oracle databases as well. Back on our ActiveProtect Manager dashboard, you can see we have the same environment we've been interacting with. We're going to go through setting up protection plans for physical and virtual machines first. Now, right front and center, you're going to see there's an option for immutable protection plans or regular protection plans. This selection is final and cannot be changed later. So what we're going to do is use an immutable protection plan, as that is the main solution that many of you are going to be using, especially if you want to follow 32110, which requires at least one immutable copy. So we're going to follow through naming this spot immutable plan, and we can run this backup via the time zone of each backup server or backup object as well. Or we can run it by the management server's time zone. This is particularly helpful if you have physically distinct devices in different locations. Now, this is going to be your main backup settings for your primary backup cadence. You can choose how many versions you want to keep in days, since this is a mutable plan. There's advanced retention rules for regular backup plans. So we're going to do up to 30 days. That's what we benchmark our systems on. Now, under the default scope and schedule, we can select our automatic backup frequency. That can be hourly, daily, or even weekly. You can also have this set to hourly and then configure backup time windows where you can block off periods of times where backups are not allowed regardless of your automatic backup settings. Now, under custom scopes and schedules, we're able to actually change individual backup types to different automatic backup cadences. Now, you saw that we have an hourly backup on certain devices, but maybe a regular Windows PC, a personal computer of someone, maybe that doesn't need hourly backups. We can set that to daily. The same goes for certain macOS devices. We may only want that on daily. And likewise, that may be true for some other devices you listed here. And so by using this custom scopes and schedules, you can individually select the backup cadence for those different backup types. Now, on this next screen, we can enable application-aware backups, which is a feature that was also available in Active Backup for Business. It leverages things like VMware tools and some Hyper-V services and VSS to back up those sensitive workloads with confidence, a battle-tested methodology. You can also customize database processing for Microsoft SQL and Oracle databases as well, and set the default guest OS or database credentials for those two different types if you need to. Next, on this next screen, we can change some advanced settings for your backups. One setting we can enable is backup verification. Whenever the system takes an image, it'll take a low-resolution video of that image booting as a VM on the internal hypervisor of this device, and will verify that this backup was indeed effective. So you can enable all these settings if you want, or disable certain ones for Windows servers, for example. And on this next screen, we can enable backup copies to push backups to another backup server, an ActiveProtect appliance, or remote storage. Now, this retention on your backup copy side offsite can be a different retention setting than you had on your primary copy. So you could retain this one for a year, especially if your vault is something as large as an HD 6500, for example, or as scalable as object storage. So now we can choose a destination, be that an ActiveProtect appliance, one of the ones that we have paired, like that 340 we just added, or we could have this push off to remote storage as well. Remote storage will allow you to use ActiveProtect Vault or an object storage destination, that being C2 object storage or first-party AWS S3 object storage. Now, once we have selected all the different settings for our backup copies, on the next screen, we can review these settings. And now you can see we have that spot immutable plan all created. And if we need to filter this list down to be able to find it, you can definitely do so. And once we dive into this immutable plan, we can change the settings after the fact if we ever need to. And again, this is a global policy. If we change these settings now, any of the included workloads would respect those changes we make on the plan itself. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add this immutable plan to protect some workloads that live on one or all of these hypervisors. So under the Machines tab on the left under Workloads, we're going to go to Virtual Machines and click Add. We're going to apply this backup plan to an existing VM. But keep in mind, you can also apply this plan as an auto backup solution for your clusters or folders, or for any auto-discovered VMs after the fact. So we're going to back up a specific VM. We're going to choose what backup server we want this initial copy of the backup to live on. Let's choose the DP340 we added previously. Now on this next screen, we're going to choose what virtual machines we want to back up. We can choose VMware or Hyper-V, and we can choose what host we want to drill down into. So I'm going to use this top one here and drill down a little bit further. And you can see all those VMs that are listed inside of that VMware instance. So I can choose a VM I want to back up with this plan we just created. I'll pull this Win10 VM, and you can choose other ones in this list if you needed to. Now we're going to let this process the VM and make sure that it has all the tools available on it to perform these backups as configured. Once you have green check marks, you can move on in the wizard here and choose what protection plan you actually want this whole solution to follow. We chose where it was going to actually send its initial backup, and now we're going to choose what plan it's going to follow in doing so. So now we can review that this is going to the DP340 first, and then going to follow the spot immutable plan for the backup copy. And now we can choose to backup now if we needed to. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at our backup activities, you can see that our Windows 10 VM is indeed backing up using the protection plan we designated. So now that we've taken a look at how to create a backup plan for physical devices and virtual machines, let's walk through the process for creating a backup plan for your Microsoft 365 data. Under Protection Plans and Create Plan, we can click Microsoft 365, and we have the same selection to either do a regular protection plan or do an immutable one. Of course, we're going to do an immutable plan for our SaaS data because we're following the 32110 methodology. And as you can see, this whole backup process for this wizard is much less choosy for the user. It's very simple to enable your backups for your Microsoft 365 data. You can have this run every hour or daily if you want, and then you can of course configure your backup copies just like you saw with the primary plan. Once again, your backup copy destination can have a deeper or shallower retention depending on what needs you have for your backup topology. You can push this off to another ActiveProtect appliance or remote storage, that being a vault or object storage on top of that. And once that is all complete, we now have a protection plan for our Microsoft 365 data available. So we have the spot immutable plan that we created. Now, what we're going to be doing next is adding in the spot immutable SaaS plan to actually take care of some workloads. And once again, as we dig into this plan, this is going to be where you can change settings after the fact. But under Cloud Applications, you can see that we're already backing up a specific tenant in our case. But if we go to Actions and go to Auto Backup Settings, for example, we can configure this plan to be the protection plan for the objects you see here. For example, for our 365 groups, SharePoint sites, etc., it's using a different plan than we created. So we can adjust that here and select the Spot Immutable SaaS plan for all of those different collaboration services you see here. So we can enable the Spot Immutable SaaS plan and choose what backup server we want that data to actually be going to over time. Now, once everything is all configured in your auto backup settings for collaboration services as well as user services, this Microsoft 365 backup solution will follow whatever plan you have selected in the protection plan column and push data to whatever backup server you have selected as well. Once you click Save, your Microsoft 365 environment and any new users and services applied to it will be protected as time goes on. So as you can see, we went over the whole plan demo for both physical and virtual machine plans and Microsoft 365 plans. And in the physical and virtual machine plan, you can see that it pretty much backs up all of those different objects in one solution. And we went over quite a bit just now. So here is our protection cheat sheet for ActiveProtect Manager, and it summarizes the available protection parameters for the different backup objects and workloads listed here. Now, keep in mind this protection cheat sheet is available on our knowledge base online on the Synology.com website. We just went over all the different things you can back up in ActiveProtect Manager. Let's take a look at the restores. For the physical PCs and Mac devices, you can do image restoration or file level recovery. For physical Windows servers and Linux servers, for example, you can do image restoration, file level recovery, physical to virtual full restores, and instant restores. Keep in mind for these physical devices for physical Windows PCs and servers, for example, there is a bootable recovery media you're going to want to create ahead of time if you do need to do a bare metal recovery. However, keep in mind there is an added recovery media creation tool inside of ActiveProtect Manager that allows you to customize drivers if you're restoring to dissimilar hardware. So if you need pointers on creating that recovery media, go ahead and reach out to your technical account manager and we can assist you there. Now, next on the list is virtual machine restores inside of ActiveProtect Manager for Hyper-V and VMware. Both of these different backup sources can enjoy instant restore back to their original platform or cross-platform and do file level recovery and full recovery back into those platforms, of course. Last on the list, we have software as a service with Microsoft 365, which allows for granular file and folder level restore to different accounts, or restore archive mailboxes, permissions, and the like. All right, we're back in ActiveProtect Manager and we're going to do some restores. So as you can see, we're backing up the same 901 workloads now. And under PCs and Macs, you can see that we have several different physical devices actually being backed up. So for this device here, this DL833, we have essentially two options available to us. We can restore the entire machine, or we can go into this recovery portal and actually browse the files themselves. So you can see that under versions, we have a couple different versions from last month and this month as well. And we can restore the entire virtual machine or browse files once we have the version selected. The Restore Entire Virtual Machine menu will show you the way to get the media creator for your Windows PC, how to deal with the ISO image, and how to deal with the ability to create recovery media manually if you ever need to change drivers or Windows versions or what have you. So make note of the tips down at the bottom if you do need them, and make sure you have that recovery media built ahead of time should you ever need it on top of that. But if we needed to pull individual files out, you could go into this File Explorer. You can see this is the C drive of a normal Windows PC. We can drill down into a specific user and find documents, photos, any other media, individual folders, files, etc. Now, once we have found a video file or whatever file or folder we want to pull out, you can select one or many of these files and folders and download them directly from the portal. Now, keep in mind, this is a recovery portal for the physical PCs, and you can provide your users permissions to do self-service recovery for their own PCs. So if you want to provide your users that autonomy, you can do so, or you can fully lock it out and have all restores be done by an admin. So here we are back on ActiveProtect Manager's dashboard once again, and we're going to go through actually doing a restore of some more critical infrastructure rather than a regular PC. We're going to go through what options you have for a physical server or a virtual machine in our case. If we click on physical servers, I want to highlight what different restore options you have in the More tab. You can open your recovery portal, restore to a virtual machine, etc. All the different items that you see here. They're grayed out because we don't have any modules being backed up under physical server right now. But under virtual machines, we essentially have the same menus as you saw under physical servers available for this backup type on top of it. So we can pull a specific VM here, and you can see there's the open recovery portal and restore to virtual machine options there. So what we're going to do is I have a specific VM I want to destroy in VMware and do an instant restore for. So I'm going to filter this down using the host I want to pull this VM out of. And we're going to go ahead and choose what backup plan this VM is a part of to further filter this down. And there we have it. We can see that we have this Windows 10 VM at the very bottom. This is going to be the VM that I'm actually going to instant restore, and you can see we have some good backups running for it. So hopping back over into my VMware environment, this is the VM that we just saw in the ActiveProtect Manager environment. So we're going to unceremoniously power this off and delete this from the environment. Now that Windows 10 VM is fully deleted from the disk inside of our VMware environment. So what we're going to do next now is we're going to actually hop back over into our ActiveProtect Manager environment to begin doing the restore itself. Now back in our ActiveProtect Manager environment, you can see we can go over to the three dots and click Restore to Virtual Machine. Now we can choose our most recent version or choose our latest version created before a specific time. Now we can check our version preview. And keep in mind that if you have a backup copy, if your primary copy is not functioning, it'll automatically pull from the copy destination, especially if you're doing like an instant restore and it's another ActiveProtect device, a DP series device, that would be most effective. Now we're going to move through all these processes to actually have this VM restored right back to its original location, and we're going to breeze through these menus. You can see now that this VM is being restored back into VMware. Moving back over to VMware, you can see a lot of activity occurring in the recent tasks menu, and you can see that the power on virtual machine process is occurring right there. So you'll see that this VM is indeed powering on. And just to show it to you, we'll pop into the web console here as well, so you can see that it is booting. And there you have it. You can see that the Windows PC is indeed booting up. And let's pop back over to our ActiveProtect Manager environment to see how long that took. So at the very top, you can see this VM is now ready to migrate, so we can move it back over into a production data store in a moment. But if we click on details, you can see this entire instant restore process from deletion to being back in VMware only took 30 seconds. Now, after we did this instant restore, let's say we want to commit these changes and get everything back into production, we can use this migrate using the recovery portal option here. And now we can use vMotion to migrate it out of this ActiveProtect NFS data store back into our production data store, this SD2 Volume 1 all-flash array that we have. Now, as you can see, it's now migrating this VM. And back in VMware, we can see the relocate virtual machine task occurring. That is ActiveProtect Manager using vMotion to migrate that VM live back into our production data store. So here we are back on our dashboard, and we're going to go through actually doing a restore for some of the cloud application data we've already taken a backup for. So we have some data for this Jon Snow user in their OneDrive that we're going to delete and then restore using our backup. You can see we have this presentation at the very top for RAID group. And what we're going to do is we're going to open this location first and then delete this out of this Microsoft 365 instance and the recycling bin on top of that. Now once this is all loaded, we're going to go ahead and find the file we want to destroy for this demo. And now that it's deleted, of course, it's in the recycling bin. So just to show you this is fully out of your Microsoft 365 environment, we're also going to delete it from the recycling bin as well. All right, now that data is removed from this user's OneDrive. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pop back over to the ActiveProtect Manager environment and do the restore. So for this user here, what we're going to do is actually open the recovery portal. And as you can see in this recovery portal, we can see all the different versions and we can click Browse Files. Now we're in this user's OneDrive and we can search for that presentation that we just recently deleted, this RAID group one you see right here. So now what we can do is we can download this directly in this web browser, and as you can see, it'll immediately start the download. Or we can click this circular button that looks sort of like a clock and go ahead and restore it directly. So something that you can do here is you can restore this PowerPoint with your share permissions. You can also change its destination account potentially to this user's admin or manager, for example. And you can also choose where you're going to actually restore this data from. And you'll see in the destination folder where it's actually going to restore this data to when we get to OneDrive. We'll need to find that folder to pull that data out in a second. Now that that restoration has started, we can click View and see what its progress is. And there you have it. That restore for that PowerPoint right back to OneDrive has been complete. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and find this restore folder that we just had created whenever we did that restore operation. So we go into My Files. You're going to see that we have a new restore folder that was created just a few seconds ago. So we're going to dive into this restore folder and boom, we can see that RAID group PowerPoint. And now we can easily move this file back into our main OneDrive or whatever folder we want, showing how simple it is to restore your Microsoft 365 data using the recovery portal in ActiveProtect Manager. As an added bonus, we described all the different restore options that are available to you if you can restore bare metal or if your hypervisor was still working. For example, you could instant restore back into VMware, or if you took an image of a VMware VM, you could restore it into Hyper-V if you have it, what have you. But let's talk about a situation where you maybe don't have your hypervisor anymore and you just have your backup system. That is where the built-in hypervisor in ActiveProtect Manager comes in handy. You're able to do emergency disaster recovery and backup verification for the backup images you take on your ActiveProtect appliances. So let's check that out right now. Okay, so we're back in ActiveProtect Manager, and let's say the worst has happened. Our main hypervisor is down, and we need to use the capabilities of this system to get us back and running in the interim. So what we're going to do in this scenario is we're going to actually do an instant restore directly to this device using its built-in hypervisor. So let's pull a critical VM backup and restore it. I know this was originally in vSphere, I know this is Windows, and this is super critical. So I know this is actually in an immutable plan, and it's actually housing a SQL database, the VM I actually want to pull up. So I'm going to filter this by that SQL designation there, and you can see we do have a SQL database VM backed up, and we're going to be able to actually restore this locally on the ActiveProtect Manager appliance. So if we go to Restore Virtual Machine just in this menu, this is the main restoration option if your hypervisor is currently available. So it'll let you restore back to where it was or do an instant restore. We're treating this as a scenario where our hypervisor is no longer available. So if we go back into the recovery portal and click Restore to Virtual Machine here, we can instant restore to the built-in hypervisor in this menu. So once we do this, we can kind of breeze through this menu, provide a name for the VM we're restoring, and give it the proper resources, both CPU and memory. And we can kind of breeze through these menus. A lot of the times, most users don't have to change these settings in their environment. And on step 5, we can choose what network we want this on, and then choose to power on this VM after the fact. So as you can see, this restoration is now started, and we can click View to see what its current status is. So we're taking a critical VM image of a SQL database holding Windows server, and we're instantly restoring this locally on this ActiveProtect Manager device. And this is one of our most powerful ActiveProtect Manager devices as well. So as you can see, we were able to restore this SQL server with this sample SQL database on it directly onto the ActiveProtect Manager device in about 16 seconds. So if your main hypervisor is down in your scenario, this would be a good way to get back up and running in the interim. And once it's in this instant restored state on the ActiveProtect Manager appliance, there is a migration pathway similar to what we saw with the instant restore to VMware. We're still able to migrate from the internal hypervisor back into your production hypervisor as well, even if you are using the internal hypervisor in this DR scenario. Moving on into section 2, we're going to take a look at the hardware in the ActiveProtect Manager environment, the data protection appliances themselves. In terms of the data protection appliance models available today, we're starting off with the DP7400, which is the most powerful device in the lineup, and this will serve as your management server as well as a backup node for any backups wherever this resides. Keep in mind, if you are in a multi-site deployment that will require more than one DP series device, then you must have at least one DP7400 to manage your entire ActiveProtect environment. There's 2 other devices in the lineup, the DP340 and the DP320, a 4-bay and a 2-bay device respectively. These devices are intended to be utilized at your satellite locations that might have smaller data loads. You can place these DP desktop devices at those sites and control their backups centrally from your DP7400. I've hinted at this a couple of times, but the DP7400 as your management server is capable of scaling far past just a single site or smaller multi-site deployment. It's capable of managing 2,500 other Synology backup servers and up to 150,000 workloads. Also, any other DP7400 in your site for ActiveProtect Manager can serve as your management failover device. You can manually failover the management and recovery portals for ActiveProtect Manager to any other DP7400 in your cluster, regardless of if that DP7400 is taking or sending backup copies itself. There's also built-in hypervisor support in the DP7400, and it's the highest performing unit in this lineup. You can have up to 9 virtual machines supported depending on their configuration with the default RAM capacity out of the box. There is also a RAM upgrade to allow for up to 17 virtual machines, again depending on the configuration of the cores and RAM for those VMs themselves. Now this is a 12-bay device. It comes with 10 20 terabyte Synology hard drives as well as 2 3.84 Synology SSDs. Both those storage mediums are pre-configured for the system and they are enterprise grade, so their warranty lines up with the DP7400 perfectly. Next on the list we have the DP340, an ideal device for remote office backups. Keep in mind, both of the desktop models in the DP series lineup are the ones that you want to utilize at those remote offices alongside a DP7400 at a more central location. The DP7400 would be the main management node across all the other sites once again. Now the DP340 is a small footprint, it's 4 bays, allowing for quick and seamless deployment alongside those management servers I just described. There is also built-in hypervisor support on this smaller DP340 device. Keep in mind though, the CPU is less capable than the DP7400, so you're only going to be able to spin up around 2 virtual machines on this remote site. How we envision this remote restore actually working on the DP340, that built-in hypervisor is mainly used for backup verification. However, if you have some lightweight critical VMs for those sites, maybe a domain controller or something smaller like that, you'd be able to spin that up locally on a DP340. Now once again, this is a 4-bay device and it comes with 4 8 terabyte Synology hard drives as well as 2 Synology M2 NVMe drives on top of that. Both of these drive types are enterprise and the warranty lines up with the hardware it comes with. Now alongside the DP340 is the DP320. It's very similar in that it is a smaller form factor desktop unit meant for those remote office backups. There's still that built-in hypervisor support, although the CPU capability is more limited than the DP340. Once again, this built-in hypervisor is mainly for your backup verification on this device or a very light VM being spun up on top of it. Now, this device is a 2-bay device that comes with 2 8 terabyte Synology hard drives. Moving on into section 3 on integration scenarios. We've already gone over smaller deployments and overall construction of the site. These integration scenarios are more so different scenarios that you might find yourself in as a seasoned Synology user or a user that is bound by certain compliance requirements. In this section, we're going to go over some different questions and how we would answer those questions utilizing the features inside of ActiveProtect Manager. So one question you might have is, what if I'm already using Active Backup for Business? How does that fit into ActiveProtect Manager? With Active Backup 3.0, which is in beta as of the airing of this webinar, this Active Backup 3.0 version is going to be capable of being managed by your DP7400 management server. So you're going to be able to manage all of the tasks from that same single pane of glass and that dashboard we've been exploring thus far. So if you want to incorporate your already existing Active Backup deployment, you would use Active Backup 3.0, and you can have that Active Backup node join your ActiveProtect Manager site. Now we're going to explore adding in your Active Backup for Business nodes into your ActiveProtect Manager environment. Similar to the DP340, the adding process is very similar. You're going to need to pull the connect key to get this joined back to your site in this case. So what we're going to do is hop over to our Active Backup for Business node in this case, and it already has Active Backup 3.0 installed on it. So that's why there's the centralized management option. We're going to type in the FQDN or IP address of our ActiveProtect Manager backup server and the connect key we copied previously. Once we get through these menus, this system will begin joining our ActiveProtect site. And we're going to let this run for a few moments. So we accelerated those loading bars just to show you what the system looks like without waiting too long. And you can see under Active Backup for Business, now that it is managed by ActiveProtect Manager, it kind of locks it down a little bit on the Synology NAS side. So you can see under Virtual Machine Physical Server, this is fully managed by our ActiveProtect environment. So if you want to manage your tasks, you would do so over here in your ActiveProtect Manager instance. And you can see we now have that Demo 2 device located in our backup service menu. Right now it is syncing and pairing back with this ActiveProtect Manager site, so that'll be a few moments before some of these menus are fully available. But you can kind of see what the different management options you have once you pair this Active Backup for Business node back with your ActiveProtect Manager environment. Now under protection plans, one thing I want to highlight is whenever you join your ABB device to your ActiveProtect Manager site, it'll convert your Active Backup for Business tasks into a plan format. So you don't have to recreate a lot of those Active Backup for Business tasks. Now once these plans are converted, you can go in and edit them very similarly to a normal ActiveProtect Manager plan that was created originally from here. Under Backup Copy, for example, we can now enable a backup copy to push this Active Backup image to an ActiveProtect appliance or to remote storage, that being a vault or object storage as well. So once we incorporate Active Backup into this environment, we can then use some other ActiveProtect Manager tools to further add redundancy and resiliency to your backup plan. Now, you may have another question, such as, I already have an enterprise Synology NAS, like an SA6400 or an HD6500. Can I leverage this in ActiveProtect? Luckily, you can with the ActiveProtect Vault. This Vault solution from Synology allows you to use an HD6500, SA6400, or SA3410 or 3610 as a vault destination for your backup copies. This vault destination will still use advanced tools such as immutable warm storage on that destination. And that's part of the requirements for setting up this vault destination, is actually enabling those warm settings. So let's go ahead and check that out now. So we're back in ActiveProtect Manager, and we're going to be adding in a vault in this case. As a reminder, what we've done so far is we've added in backup servers, which are other DP series devices, or Active Backup for Business nodes, and we've set backup copies to go to other DP series devices. So we took an initial backup on a DP340 and sent a copy to the DP7400 as an example. Now under remote storage, we can add in a Vault, C2 Object Storage, or AWS S3 as your destinations. These are essentially different options for sending your backup copy to. So if we choose ActiveProtect Vault, we can join a Vault Synology NAS on the other side to this site. So we're going to hop over to the Synology NAS in question, and we're going to begin going through the Vault process for adding in a shared folder as an ActiveProtect Manager Vault destination. So you can see there's no shared folders available, so we're going to follow through with some of the wizards to actually create a shared folder for the ActiveProtect Vault. So you're going to want to click this link and go to this Knowledge Center article. And you're going to see all the different steps you need on the Synology NAS to enable this securely, especially enterprise mode or compliance mode for your warm storage and data checksums and the like. So once that's all done and we've reviewed that Knowledge Center article, we can enable this on the NAS side. So if we go to Create Shared Folder, as many of us know, we can go ahead and name the shared folder. And we can choose what volume we want this shared folder to live on. We're going to put it on volume 3 since that's our largest one. And we do want to protect this with our write once, read many settings worm. Now we can choose enterprise or compliance mode for this setting. We're just going to leave it on enterprise just for simplicity's sake. And that's all we need on that menu. We can then enable data checksum for advanced data integrity, leave compression disabled. Now once that is all finished, that ActiveProtect Manager Vault is now available inside of the Vault program. Now once we hit refresh, you can now see that we have that Vault folder now available. And once we hit add, it's going to bring it into this Vault program we're seeing here. Now once that's added into the Vault program that we just saw, you can see that it's created a couple different keys. So you want to download the access key and secret key. Please note, the secret key is no longer retrievable once this window is closed. So make sure you have saved what this downloads for you. You'll need both those keys when we go back over to ActiveProtect Manager to connect to the ActiveProtect Vault. So now what we're going to do is type in the server address and bring over that access key and that secret key we saw in that previous menu, and we're going to move through with this wizard. Keep in mind, since we're pushing off to a vault destination, you can enable client-side encryption for this as well. So make sure you keep hold of this encryption key, because anytime you are relinking this vault destination, you will need that encryption key to repair to it. So once that's all complete, we can now see we have that spot APM vault destination as an option inside of our remote storage location here. Now, if we go to the protection plans we've been working on so far, what does this do for us? If we go and edit this protection plan, like the spot immutable plan, for example, you can see the copy destination is going to a DP7400. But we could actually adjust this so it goes to remote storage instead. And we can send that to now our ActiveProtect Manager Vault. The reason why this is valuable is your DP7400 has around 120 terabytes of capacity on it. And your retention policy may need more storage than what's available on that device. So by using a vault with an HD 6500 that scales to multiple petabytes, you can meet your retention requirements even if you're required to retain your data for many, many years. Now for our last question here, it's for all of you that may have some compliance concerns. You may have a question such as, we're in a highly secure environment. What are the best practices for networking security? Now, air gap and isolation are the ways that you're going to meet those needs for your environment. Air gapping, as we're going to see in just a minute, it helps you to bring your backup copy server offline periodically so that if an encryption event occurs, that backup copy may be completely offline when that ransomware begins to attack that environment on that other side. So by having that air gap in place, you're able to have that device reduce its exposure to ransomware overall. Likewise, there's also a concept of isolation inside of the ActiveProtect Manager environment. Unlike Active Backup for Business and a regular Synology NAS, there is a dedicated management and data flow port, and we'll take a look at a diagram to see what the best practices surrounding that are. For now, let's go ahead and check out air gap. All right, last but not least, let's take a look at how you can enable air gap inside of the ActiveProtect Manager environment. We're back on our dashboard once again. And what we're going to do to enable the air gapping policies for these systems is we're going to move over to the backup server tab, and you're going to click on the backup copy destination for your backup plan that's listed here. So let's say this APM device is your backup copy destination. Under this device, under air gap, you're going to be able to select firewall settings to only allow specific IP addresses, or you can go down into your isolation settings and click the gear icon under the isolation settings near the Deny All Connections button. When you click this gear icon, you can either deny all connections, all data port connections will be blocked on the server, you can deactivate network interface cards entirely, or you can shut down the server entirely during this isolation period. This is why we recommend your backup copy destination being your air gap device, so that your main device taking your primary backups will hit the cadence you set in your default scope and schedule. Now once we hit apply based on our policy here and highlight the different areas where we want to deny connections on the calendar, then we'll have successfully air gapped what is your copy destination. As promised, this is the best practices for the overall isolation procedure for your ActiveProtect appliance. As you can see, there is a data network interface card and a management network interface card. And you can see the data flow for that whole environment is connected directly to your production workload, so it can actually receive the backups. Your management network interface is on a completely different network, completely different security posture than your overall production data flow ports. So whenever you're setting up your ActiveProtect Manager environment, know that it is best practice to isolate your management and data flow ports similar to other enterprise vendors out there. Moving on into section 4, a recap and some next steps for you all. We went over quite a bit, and we started off with the ActiveProtect Manager software and all the different things you can back up utilizing that system in one pane of glass. We then took a look at the data protection appliance lineup, which is the hardware behind the ActiveProtect software. And we rounded things out today by taking a look at some different integration scenarios, using some questions you may have if you're an existing Synology user or if you're a user that has certain compliance requirements. Keep in mind, ActiveProtect Manager and the Data Protect appliance are a dedicated all-in-one enterprise backup solution to provide your organization, your enterprise, with 32110 backup methodology. Now, if you need help past what the Synology webinar provides, go ahead and check out our Synology product online training page. There's hours and hours of video content there. If If you need help pass what those webinars can provide, go ahead and check out our Knowledge Base and Knowledge Center. There's step-by-step guides on a range of topics there. And lastly, if you need help pass what those resources can provide, go ahead and send us an inquiry, and our highly trained inquiry team will get your questions answered. Now, if you're a business user with your own internal IT team, go ahead and reach out to onboarding@synologyamerica.com and we can get you connected with some internal resources here. If you're a channel partner or a reseller, go ahead and reach out to sac_sales@synology.com and we can get you connected with your technical account manager to give you a training on ActiveProtect Manager and some different partner benefits associated with it. Lastly, for our friends in the UK, if you have UK offices or UK clients, go ahead and reach out to UK_sales@synology.com and they can get your questions answered there too, and also connect you with some technical account managers on that side of the pond as well. With that all being said, thank you so much for tuning in to this introduction to ActiveProtect Manager, and we will see you next time.